So quite a while ago. Actually, the year I was born. So some special things happened in 1968. So yeah, we just got, a couple weeks ago, we actually just welcomed representatives from about 35 countries that came to Vail to check out the venue and get a feel for how the mountain skis and rides, and check out lodging, and get really excited about Interski in 2027 in Vail. So we're in partnership with hosting the event, and it's awfully exciting. So we'll kick things off here with a little hype video. Nice, huh? See that final run where everyone's all on the demo slope? That's quite terrifying. I'm gonna put Jeb Boyd on the spot. I'm gonna ask him, Jeb, what does Interski mean to us and the association and the world of snow sports instruction?
You definitely put me on the spot. Thanks, everybody. Interski is such an important event for us because it provides us a timeline when we have to make deliverables for where we are in the U.S. and what we believe in ski and snowboard technique, and how we can develop that technique to affect our membership, who then take that technique and affect the people who come and ski with us at our home resorts. So it allows us to get with all these wonderful nations on the hill every 4 years, and we get to learn from each other. We get to share what we believe in our technique is, and we get to learn from the other nations as to what they feel their technique is. And there's no right or wrong, but it allows us to advance and evolve our sport and our profession. And so Interski is critical for us here. And all of the interesting thing is all the things that we enjoy is content for us here in PSIA and AASI. It comes from the work that we use to prepare for Interski. So I hope you enjoy things like learning connection models, things like skills concepts, things like student-centered teaching, because that all evolved from our efforts going to Interski. So we are excited about our time here coming in 2027, and who knows what we're gonna come out of this thing with, but I know it will be good.
I knew I would not have said that better. Your head coach of the PSIA-AASI national team, Jeb Boyd. So what's cool about the last few Interskis that I've had the pleasure to attend is they're built on a theme. And in Pomperovo, Bulgaria, the theme was future.snow sports, or what is the future of snow sports? And so the idea was every country wants to come with their ideas and share on what they felt like the future was coming to us. And then we basically said, hey, our team, we were coming off the Learning Connection, and we said a deeper connection with people skills, deeper connection to the learning environment is the future. Connections and connections to learning. We believe that that's the future. And at the time, we were developing people skills within our standards, as mentioned a couple of nights ago, the project that we're working on. And the rest of the world was really, really curious about that. It's like, aren't people skills all about your personality? It's like, well, no, actually, it's about behaviors. And we can measure behaviors. And if we can measure behaviors, we can train to them. And then we can work on our people skills. We can work on deeper connections. In Levi, Finland, the next, in 2023, the theme was the guest experience is everything. And that was just played right into what we've been all about for decades, which is student-centered teaching and learning. And so we got together, and I also wanted to make sure, is Eric here with us right now? Where's Eric Shackleton? So Eric Shackleton just got reelected as the president of the Interski Association, so give it up. And certainly something that when he first got on the Interski board, actually in Ushuaia, that was kind of a thought. It's like, well, could we bring Interski back to the U.S.? And it's pretty awesome that with his leadership, he's going to get to see that through in 2027. So, former chair of the PSIA-AASI National Board, if you didn't know that, he's got an amazing career with our association. So thanks again to everything that Eric has done for us. Okay. So the Presidium got together and we started talking about what could the theme be for 2027, and with the idea that the instructor has the greatest impact with snow sports enthusiasts and guests at resorts and areas. They spend more, we all spend more time with guests than any other mountain employee. And therefore, we have a huge impact on that. And so what does that mean? And so a play on the in word being all in, focused on the instructor, and interski, we started thinking about some other key pieces that were values to our association, values to Vail Resorts, as well as values to Interski International. And the idea with include is how can we welcome more and more people to snow sports? And we want to basically challenge the world and our colleagues from around the world on how we can do that, involve more people. Ann Shorling had a groundbreaking, award-winning keynote at the last Interski on gender equity in snow sports. So how do we continue that momentum coming out of Interski to welcome more and more people and guests? And a key piece, too, that we mentioned a couple weeks ago in Vail was to make sure that teams bring all sliding disciplines. So in terms of inclusion, let's make sure that alpine, snowboard, telemark, cross-country, adaptive sports, they're all included in the teams that come to Vail. Certainly, we always need to push. We always need to think forward. We always need to push the envelope and innovate with technology and learning theory and everything else. And so a great way to rally around how we can share ideas and collaborate on how we move the sport forward, and also think about how we can make sure that future generations to come can also enjoy the sport. Things like sustainability are real issues that we need to tackle, and we'll work on that together, as a united world of snow sports instructors. And then finally, back to what the instructor does, what the national team does, what we all do with guests every day, all season long, is inspire them to be better, to do better, to push, to learn, to come back for more. And so that's the spirit of that as well. So we're asking all the countries to rally around the theme of all in. A couple more pieces here. This is the newly launched, thanks to Catherine Fuller, our Director of Marketing and Communications, newly launched Interski webpage. You can see all of the premier sponsors along the bottom there as well. Certainly, it's going to take a massive collaboration and partnership with the town of Vail, the Vail Valley Partners, the Vail Valley Foundation. That's the group that runs the Birds of Prey World Cup. Certainly, Vail Mountain, the Hythe Hotel, and then also just a few other things that you can follow. Teams are already rallying around the road to Interski, and so there's a YouTube page here on Interski International, so check that out. Interski TV, JMO in the house. APSI actually is leading the charge on Australians right now on this concept of Interski TV and teams posting on the road to Vail. So people are getting really, really excited about that. So with that, just wanted to give you a preview. It's really exciting, and as we get closer, it's 2 years away. We have a ton of work to do, but we also want to make sure that it's an amazing event and you have opportunities to partake in it, and we'll be giving you more information on how to get involved and or be a part of Interski 2027. Extremely exciting for our association. So thanks for letting me tell you about it. Question? Well, that's in conversation right now. It might not be just like this. It might be Academy Light. We actually are discussing that, and if you have thoughts and ideas on how we might pull that off, we're all ears. So one of the thoughts is that we maybe do it immediately after Academy, but we don't have a solid plan yet. But that's a great question. We got to figure that out. Cool. Okay. So now to our main event. I'm pleased to announce our special guests. And the general session for tonight is Teaching and Coaching Insights from the Golf Industry. So we've had the pleasure of working with Penn State, as we know. And within the Penn State, within the College of Health and Human Development and the Recreation Park and Tourism Management Department, of which Pete Allison is part of, we started to get to know the professional golf management folks as well. And when we first learned about the PGM program, we thought, man, that sounds really similar to what we're thinking about developing for snow sports. Because there's a proficiency of the sport that you need to be able to actually shoot to a certain score. And at the same time, while you're working on your golf game, you're also working on the aspects of the business. And so that's very, very similar to what we've been developing for snow sports. And with our credentials lined up with some of the pieces of how to learn about the snow sports business, and even more now we can actually get credits from doing that. So it's been a long journey, a 10-year plan that we wrote back in 2016, and we're starting to realize some of that. And so the relationships that we've forged along the way are amazing, and Brian and Eric are going to tell you more about how we're starting to collaborate and learn from each other, so the PGA and PSIA-AASI, and how we can just collaborate more and get more people excited about learning, both skiing, snowboarding, and golf. So with that, I'm going to bring these guys up and let them go. We've got Eric Handley, he's MSPGA Director, Penn State Golf Teaching and Research Center, and Brian Soulé, PhD, PGA Director, World Campus Programs. So the World Campus Programs are the online learning programs through Penn State University. Assistant Director, PGA Golf Management Program. So give it up for these two gentlemen here.
Well, all right, the mic works. Thank you for having us. This is a real honor and a pleasure. Brian got to come last year, and I'll tell you, when he returned from this last year, I've known Brian since 2009. We've worked together, worked really closely. I haven't seen him that excited about something probably since the first day that he showed up to Penn State in 2009. Check that. His wedding was probably the top, right? The second was his time here last
Good
year.
save.
Yeah. But this is a real honor, and I see why Brian had such a great time, and it's an honor to be here, and we're excited for tonight. So we've got a presentation planned for you, kind of two parts. There's going to be a first part that's going to be PowerPoint focused, kind of take you through some content, and then we're going to get into a live demonstration. We'll tell you more about that when we get there. But if you'd like to and have any interest, you can hit this QR code and you can download the presentation for yourself. So if you want to do that now, feel free. If you want to wait and grab it at the end and see if you care at all about anything we're about to talk about, you can grab it at the end too, okay? We'll give you a second.
We good? All right.
All right, so a quick intro about each of us. So I'll start first. I'm from Asheville, North Carolina originally. If you know anything about Asheville or have been there, it's impossible to grow up there and not really find yourself interested in doing things outdoors. For me, it was every sport I could possibly get into. Unfortunately, though, I didn't really have a connection to skiing. There were a couple of friends of mine that would go up and ski in Boone, North Carolina, but my family wasn't really in it. So I didn't really get connected into skiing until we decided to do a family trip. I think I was a junior in high school, and so my first ever experience with skiing was in Keystone, Colorado, at the Keystone Resort. I figured go big or don't do it, I suppose, right? And I vividly remember walking in to the rental area and then walking over from the rental space over to the instruction space and starting to learn how to ski. And that was a really foundational moment for me in my time skiing. So I told you I did a lot of sports. I then attended NC State. I actually chose to go to NC State to major in sports management, but really I chose it because I was recruited to play soccer there. So I was a soccer player at NC State. As I finished that up, I was doing an internship, and I decided I wasn't going to play soccer for a career. Let's get into something that's got me going to be outdoors. So I thought, well, let's do it at a resort. So I did it at the Homestead Resort, where I worked in their golf operation, and then fell in love with the golf industry and have been there ever since. So that's a little quick about me.
Great, I'll step in here. I was born and raised on the eastern shore of Maryland, and if anybody's ever been there, they are as flat a cornfield as you can find. I had the chance to go south for college. I attended Clemson University for professional golf management and became a PGA professional. Along the way, worked at a couple of the greatest golf resorts in America at Pebble Beach Resorts and the Sea Pines Resort in South Carolina. And then I went along to UNLV. My thought when I went to UNLV to get my master's degree was I wanted to get a master's in sport management and perhaps one day manage as an executive director a big resort, maybe such as Big Sky. I fell in love with teaching in the classroom, so then I moved my way to Penn State after that. But I wanted to tell you how I got into skiing. For me, growing up on the Eastern Shore, we would go to Blockbuster. Raise your hand if you remember Blockbuster. You remember going there on Friday nights to get the new releases. Well, the new release that we got really excited about, and I'm going to point in the general direction of the Warren Miller Lodge, were the Warren Miller films, right? We started watching them before I put skis on. And so eventually, one day, I was able to make my way up to, where is Jeff? He's in the room. You used to work at Liberty for a bit, right? So that was my first ski experience, and not to brag, but after a few days of work there, I ripped down White Lightning, yeah, which is very similar to the Dictator chutes, if you've never been there. After that, we went out and did a couple of cheaper trips with some cheap airlines out to the Cottonwoods. We'd stay in a hotel down in Sandy, and we'd go up to Alta, and I'll never forget my first time looking down Alf's High Rustler and going, what the hell am I doing here? And I've had the experience, the privilege of working with Dr. Pete Allison to put up our snow sports certificate program at Penn State. I had my first experience here last year, and if you'll have me, I'll come forever. So I wanted to go over a few of the goals for tonight's presentation. You said that you heard that we're going to have a live demonstration in a little bit here, but our goals tonight are to just share some information. So we're going to introduce to you what the PGA of America does for our teaching and coaching foundations. And hopefully that'll spark some thoughts, right? We're going to compare and contrast a little bit with what you do, and the whole goal tonight is just to spark meaningful conversation and a future of information sharing. There are a lot of folks at PGA headquarters who are very excited about this relationship that we've formed. A lot of folks who were very envious that Eric and I were going to ski for a week at Big Sky. Well, where we wanted to start was where both organizations started. And what we found when we dug in a little bit is we pretty much had the same founding principles. So one of the first ways that I was able to learn about your organization was through George Thomas's First Chair podcast. Raise your hand if you love the First Chair. it is awesome, right? And it's given so much great information. And in one of the earlier podcasts that I heard, this was the founding principle established right here in Montana in 1961 to create a standard of consistency for ski instruction that will draw new participants into the sport from across the nation. Okay. So the PGA of America was founded in 1916. The purpose of the gathering to found the PGA of America was to discuss forming a national organization which would promote interest in the game of golf, that sounds familiar, and to help elevate the vocation of golf professionals. And I've found each time that I've been to National Academy, that's what you all are doing. You are elevating your vocation. And I don't know if everybody's seen this before, you know, if you're whatsoever familiar with this, but this is called the Learning Connection Model. Eric and I have had the chance to really spend some time digging into this, learning about this. And what we really love about this, and at times are a bit envious of, is that the student is at the very center, right? One of the things, obviously, and what we'll show you tonight is that in the golf industry, we teach technical skills, we talk about teaching skills and learning, but we don't actually draw out the people skills specifically. And we think that you do an incredible job of that. So we just wanted to kind of give you all kudos because what's most important is the experience of the student, of the learner, and that's why you all are so good at what you do. So with that, we'll introduce you to the PGA teaching and coaching model. It's going to look kind of familiar, a bit of a triangle look, right? We break our teaching and coaching down into kind of three areas: teaching, learning, and game. And we're going to tell you all about all three tonight. And hopefully you'll see some similarities. And there are going to be some differences. And I'm pretty excited for us to explore those differences as well. So we'll start with the teaching part of the presentation here. The first thing that I think we have in common, or perhaps most in common with your sport, is that we teach people, not the game of golf, right? So where we start and what we teach our students at Penn State and the PGA of America teaches their PGA professionals is that the relationship that you have with your student is the single most important thing. And I'll tell you a funny story about one of our alumni who's a teaching professional up in the Northeast. He actually teaches down in Florida during the wintertime. And he said that there are times where he thinks that some of his clients will book a lesson with him just because they just want to spend some time with him. Because the relationship has grown so much that they're just excited to return to the resort where he's working and spend some time with him and maybe learn some golf along the way. And I'm seeing some head nods because some of you have return clients who request you each year, and that relationship has become really special for you and for them. Communication obviously is key. We talk about how important it is, and I think last night's presentation with Andrew, thank you so much for your presentation, for your thoughts. Communication, asking great questions, it's such an important part of what we all do, and that's something that we certainly lean into. Goal setting, I think, is a really critical part, and I'm sure you all would agree with me, that the biggest mistake that we can make is to not check in with our students first to see why they're there, right? They could just be there to have a good time and to meet other people in a group setting, or they might be there because they really want to elevate their game or their skiing, right? So one of the things that we talk about with our students is the first thing that you do is you ask your student, why are you here today? And they're going to give you an array of answers. And while we are the experts and we'll probably have an idea of what's best for them, we better take into account their goals and make that a mutual agreement between us, and that sets you up for great success across your lesson.
So to continue on the teaching content here, explanations and demonstrations. Big piece of what we do in golf. It's obviously a big piece of what you do. I've experienced over the last 2 days the opportunity to learn from a couple of folks in your organization who not only would tell me or talk to me or communicate verbally with me about what they're seeing in their evaluation of my movements, but also verbally tell me, you know, you might want to try it this way or look at it from this angle. but then they would also demonstrate it, right? And so that's a key piece for what we do in golf as well. Getting our first-year students to understand that when we've set up a pretty cool program with them where our first-year students in their level 1 teaching and coaching class are set up with PE students who are beginner golfers at the university. And they've got to teach one-on-one lessons. And we go through a lot of the learning content and the teaching content leading up to that. Some of the stuff we're going to go through tonight. But then when they get in that head-to-head individual instruction environment, getting them to think about the explanations that they provide, the way they communicate, and the demonstrations that they consider and go through is a really difficult task for a beginning learner. And so that's a key piece of what we do. Within that, golf has leaned heavily into technology. You'll see that through the demonstration tonight. The demonstration is really only possible partly because we've got some of the technology with us here tonight. So I'd love to think about or learn from you all and what type of technologies you utilize to help your students learn, right? How do you identify quickly what it is that they need to focus on? And then how do you translate that into movement changes or performance outcome changes? And then teaching aids is a big piece of golf. But what we have in golf, particularly since you can watch any YouTube video that's out there or buy any gadget off of Amazon for golf instruction or golfer performance, is the utilization of aids and how it plays out, where people get comfortable utilizing the aids, but then when you take the aid away, can they still perform that task? Have they actually learned? And we'll talk about that here in a moment as well. So that kind of wraps up our teaching portion as a whole. Right, gives you a round view of that. We'll next go into learning. And learning, I think, will be pretty familiar with you all as well. But we'll start with a little demonstration. So, and we'll do this by looking at the Fitz and Posner 3 phases of motor skill learning. So I imagine many of you have seen this. Can I get a show of hands? Seen this? Okay, awesome.
That's good.
So we cover this in level 1, teaching and coaching with our students in golf. One of the demonstrations we use, I don't know if you've seen this, but if you can all take your right hand or left hand, take your dominant hand, let's do that. And you're going to put it on the table in front of you, all right? First, what I'd like you all to do is at the same time lift your index finger and your ring finger. All right, keep those both up. All right, put them down. Next, I need you to lift your middle finger and your pinky finger. Put them down. And now we're going to try to quickly go back and forth between those. All right? Is there anyone? Give it a try. Give it a try. First, how many of you are looking at your fingers? Okay. Right? Right? So, is there anybody in the room that is wondering why the rest of us are struggling? Did anybody nail it? Usually there's somebody in the room that got it pretty good. Don't be shy. Feel pretty good about it? Pretty good?
There it is.
All right, there it is. She said she played the piano, right? Yeah. So that's typically the case. Somebody in the room has played the piano, and so that comes pretty naturally. So for the rest of us, though, we were sitting in this early cognitive stage, right? Like we are sitting there thinking, how the hell do I go from that finger to that finger, right? But for somebody else who's done it, this is pretty autonomous, right? I can see her right now. She's not even looking. She's going right between the two. We're all good here, right? The reality of it in golf is that oftentimes we're sitting in this intermediate stage, right? We're kind of sitting in the associative stage. Or we might have a really good player, an elite player, somebody you might see play on TV, where you might think they're in this autonomous phase, but if they make some sort of swing change or a setup change, right? Oftentimes, even though they're an elite player, they're going back to that early cognitive stage because they're thinking about it. They're thinking about how to do it in a practice environment and then how to translate that into the on-course environment. We'll talk about that in a moment too. And then also how to do it on course in a tournament in the final round on the last hole. A whole nother level. So it's a big part of what we discuss with our students.
Okay, I'm going to try to confuse you. So take a look at this, and we all think about, really, the thing that we have in common is that we're all teaching a motor program. We're all teaching a motor skill. So the way that we think about this and how we guide our students to think about motor program activation and motor program learning is that we all start by saying, let's retrieve a motor program. So it's either going to be the same program. For us, it might be a golf swing or a putt, and for you, it might be a number of turns, right? Or perhaps a corrected program. Maybe you were working on something out on snow today, and you were working on a corrected program, and your brain is telling your body, don't do the thing that it always used to do. Do this new thing that we've been working on today. So that's that corrected program. Or a brand new program that you've never tried before, your instructor just gave it to you, and you're trying to figure that out. That motor program activates in the top right. And at that moment, there is a copy of that command that's sent to the muscular system. The muscular system then has to react. There's that response. And then we're going to talk in just a minute about feedback. Your body gets some feedback in a number of different ways, right? If you think about it, it can be auditory, it can be kinetic, it can be any number of types of feedback, and we'll talk about different types. And that's how the sensory system kind of takes it in. Then we evaluate, how did I do? And raise your hand this morning if you got maybe a tip or a thought and you nailed it on the first try. Okay, not many hands,
None
right?
of you. Oh, boy.
But then after a few tries and after going through this motor program, activation, response, and evaluation, you started to get the hang of it. Heck yeah, there's some good teachers in the room, right? So this is kind of what we talk about with motor programs. One of the really fun assignments that we give our students is, because they're all great golfers, right? You all are great skiers. We make them learn a new skill, motor program skill, a movement that they've never done before. And they have to go through the process of being a beginner and documenting that process of learning that motor program. We had one student try to learn how to do a backflip. That didn't go very well.
Yeah, we had to cut that out after that. Yeah.
We've had many students learn how to play a musical instrument. We even had a couple of students learn how to do baton twirling. And it's really fun to watch them document that process start to finish. I encourage each of you, as snow sports instructors, to do this. And remember what it's like to be a beginner. And that first time on snow, do it and pick up a new skill. See how that process goes for you. Feedback is so critical. And the way that we think about it in the golf business is that students get feedback from two sources. There's intrinsic feedback and there's augmented feedback. Intrinsic feedback is anything that comes from within yourself, and augmented feedback is anything that comes from an outside source. So we're going to just take a moment here, and I want you to turn to a neighbor and have a little chat. But first, I'll give you a couple of examples in the golf business of intrinsic feedback. So intrinsic feedback might be the sound of a golf shot. We know when we're at a golf tournament watching the professionals, we always hear, that sounds different with them, right? So maybe it's through sound. Maybe it's through feel, right? It could be any number of different internal cues that give you feedback that you don't need anything or anybody to tell you what just happened. So I want you to turn to a neighbor right now. I want you to just talk about a few different types of intrinsic feedback that your students might get, whether they're a beginner in snow sports or whether they're along and advanced. What is some intrinsic feedback that they might get as you're teaching them and you're working on maybe a new motor program or a new movement? So just talk for just a minute about some intrinsic feedback. Take about 20 more seconds. Okay, let's start to wrap it up. I love this. All right. Let's have some folks share out. Let's see a raise of hands and tell me one or two types of intrinsic feedback that your student might use to self-evaluate. Anybody want to share out? Yeah. Say that again? Foot to foot. Okay. They can feel that themselves. I like that. Less tense? I love that. Man, we talk about that in golf all the time.
Yeah.
Gravity.
Gravity.
Yeah, we all feel that. Oh, I love that. Connecting turns, some flow to their movement. Something I struggle with on snow. Yeah. Yeah, when they're first sliding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, right? And that's one of the first things that they feel. And that's something that you can start to talk to them about. So then we switch gears and we move on to augmented feedback, and that's any feedback that comes from an outside source. And so oftentimes we think about it comes from the instructor, from the snow sports instructor, from the golf instructor. We're going to show you some types tonight of augmented feedback in golf that really help us as golf instructors help our students, right? You can't see with your eye, no matter how good of a golfer you are, if your swing path is inside to out or outside to in, or your club face angle is X, Y, or Z, we've got some technology to help with that. So what I'd like for you to do now is think about types of augmented feedback. Maybe it's from you as the instructor. I'm really curious if there are any types of augmented feedback that you can use to bring in and help that student be able to understand more about their movement on snow, right? So think about that for just a second, chat with your neighbors. We're curious because we don't know. So take a moment to chat about that. There was some stuff from the intrinsic.
Yeah.
Foot to foot.
Yeah.
Take about 20 more seconds. All right. All right, let's bring it back. Other than you telling your students to do something different or maybe the same, what are some types of augmented feedback that you came up with? Tracks and snow, I love that, okay. Because maybe they don't know how to interpret those tracks, right? We got to teach them how to interpret.
Like following your tracks in the snow. Yeah.
Could be either or. I love
What if
that.
they look back at their own tracks in the snow? That might then change to intrinsic, right?
If they know how to interpret. Yep.
Yep.
That's great. I love that. There was another hand? Yeah.
Synchro skiing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's one we use nonstop in the golf business is video. Raise your hand if you teach with video. Cool. Any others? Yeah. Carve. I'm hearing about Carve. We want to try it out.
Yeah, I'm
If you know
highly
somebody.
curious. Yes.
So our goal with augmented feedback is to help the student learn intrinsically, right? So we give them feedback from an outside source. That informs them so that with tracks, let's say that they're looking at their own tracks, but a beginner skier has no clue how to interpret what did that look like and what was I doing. But we can teach them so that the next time they're on snow and we're not with them, they can look back at their tracks and say, I know what I did there. So our goal in golf is to use augmented feedback to a point where we can have our students use their intrinsic feedback to self-assess and self-correct, because we are not always going to be there as coaches, right? And we're hoping that they can continue to make improvements once they're on snow or on the golf course without us. Really quickly, we talk about effective practice in the golf industry. And you may do this with your students where you say, hey, you know, our time is done today, but we're going to give you a few ideas, some drills, some ways for you to take what we learned today and work on it on your own and make it so that when you come out on snow, you're not mindlessly doing your thing. You're really making it so that it's truly effective. And we give our players in golf games and drills and goals and things to work on so that the next time they come back, they've worked on it effectively. And finally, in the golf industry, if anybody was watching the Masters on Sunday, you were a little bit late to the presentation last night. Mental game is massive in golf. Even for the best player in the world, Rory McIlroy, there were moments of he probably felt like he was the best player in the world, and then there was a moment where he made a double bogey and he felt like he was the worst player in the world. Part of what we teach in golf is how to effectively approach the game and think about the game and manage the mental game. And certainly fear plays a big role there, and I'm sure it does with many of your students.
Yeah. So transfer of learning is something that we take a look at. We'll talk about it a little bit in the demonstration here, so I maybe won't mention as much right now on transfer of learning, but I will say, actually I should have done this earlier. How many of you have taken a golf lesson? Sweet. Nice.
Love it.
Okay. So hopefully by the end of that golf lesson, you got some input as to what Brian was saying of like how to effectively practice and continue to work on that skill so that it is something you truly learn. But then also, if that many of you have taken lessons, and there's at least that many of you that play golf, how many of you have said, man, I hit it great on the range, but I can't take this to the course, right? Like, it's what we constantly hear. Why do I hit it so good over here on the range, but then when I go to the course, I can't do the same thing? So that transfer of learning from the practice facility to the on-course, I think we've got it wrong. I think you've got it right. And I think we can learn a lot from you all and how you do that. And I'll talk about that in our demonstration here in a little bit. And so what is change? Like, what is learning? How do we know if somebody has learned? We're gonna get a guinea pig up here and do a movement assessment and kind of demonstrate some of what we're talking about here. But even if we see a different performance outcome or a different movement change, has that person learned? Or did they just perform differently in this instance? We talk about that and what it takes to actually learn that skill. And oftentimes in golf, what we need to focus on with our golfers is that, okay, great, I got you performing what we want at the end of that lesson. I now need to give you proper practice assignments so that you can use the augmented feedback I've given you, focus on your intrinsic feedback to know whether or not you're working on the correct thing. And then we're going to let some time pass, let you work on it, and the next time back, we're going to do a retention test, right? Have you actually learned this skill? If you can perform it later down the line, from what we worked on earlier, then I, as the instructor, might be able to assume that you have learned a skill. But just because you're doing it at the end of the lesson doesn't mean you've learned that skill, right? So that's a big piece of what we talk about in golf. All right, so the game. The game really is the part of golf that you hear the most about. It's the part that our students, when they get to our program, this is what they want to talk about. This is what they want us to help them with, right? So the pieces of the game that come together here. Equipment. Equipment's a big one. It obviously is in your industry. I had a great ride on the chairlift where I got to ask some questions of some of your experts about equipment, ski equipment, why, different properties of the skis, how that relates to performance, how that fits to different skiers or different conditions. We have all the exact same thing in golf, right? You've got different club heads, you've got different shafts, you've got different clubs in general, you've got different golf balls. All this relates to performance. And so we try to help our students understand having the correct equipment is going to help influence your performance, right? The wrong equipment will only hurt your performance. Fitness is a big piece. Mobility, stability, those things important in golf. Those things important in skiing, hugely important. So we take our Golf Teaching Research Center, we'll share a little video of some work we've done around biomechanics. Since we opened in 2009, we've partnered with our biomechanics department and take a really detailed look at the motions and the forces that a golfer produces to create the club delivery that ultimately determines where the golf ball goes. We want to understand that whole picture to do our movement assessments. And so we'll show you some of that in a moment. I mentioned on-course instruction. We have to do a much better job of that. That's something the golf industry is not good at. We have a little bit of a limitation, but I think we've used it as an excuse of, well, the tee times are already booked. People are already on the course. I think that's crap. We've got to find a better way around that. You all are, I've already witnessed in 2 days, excellent and don't have that problem, right? You get right on the slopes. You are in the performance space. Golf resides in this flat lie to the same target with the same club with no consequence to your shot results. And that's why you think, oh, I hit it great today and I didn't transfer it to the course. Of course you didn't. We didn't put you in the environment that you need to perform on, right? All right, and then laws, principles, and preferences. Let's get into this. All right, let's go to the laws. So as we look at elite level golfers, let's say, this is an easy one because they're all around the same playing ability, right? This is the top of the backswing for a series of elite level golfers, PGA Tour and LPGA Tour players. These are the best in the world. They're all at the top of the backswing, yet we see a lot of similarities, right? We've got torso turned, their shoulders are turned, right? We've got their hands somewhere near their shoulders, but you can see there's a little bit of variety there. Their head's still kind of looking at the ball for the most part. They've got a little knee flex in their knees, but there's a different amount of knee flex between some of them, right? So what of these are laws? What of these are principles? What of these are preferences? So let's get into each one of those. So ball flight laws. What matters in golf is where the golf ball goes. That's your performance outcome. That determines whether or not you played well that day, right? That's what determined whether or not Rory won the tournament. Where the golf ball goes, getting it in the hole the fastest. So we have to understand the physics of the club and ball collision, right? I imagine you've got to understand the physics of the ski on the terrain. Yep. So when we look at this, there are 6 things that are going to determine where the golf ball goes. I'll quickly define them. Centerness of contact. That's just where on the club face you're hitting it. We would love for you to hit the center of the face. That is number 1 for us. If you don't hit the center of the face, then the rest of the stuff is kind of secondary. Because if you're hitting it off the end of the club, towards the heel of the club, the top or the bottom, or if you're hitting the ground first, we've got some other things to do, right? Then let's get you to the center. Then a lot of these other laws come into play. Club speed is another one. Club speed, we used to think was kind of static. It is what it is. You've got your club speed, and I don't know how to make it faster. But through a lot of the biomechanics work that's been done lately, we can increase club head speed for a lot of golfers. So that's been pretty fun. Club face angle and club path. Those are the two we'll probably focus on a lot in our demonstration because that's going to determine where the ball starts and then where the ball curves to. Anybody in here play a slice? Know what a slice is? So if you're a right-handed golfer, it's going to start out maybe at the target, maybe a little left of target, maybe a touch right of target, but then it's going to turn right. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. 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 A hook would be the opposite, right? That ball's going to turn left for a right-handed golfer. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah? Brian's got those in the bag for sure. So that's going to be based on the relationship of the club face angle and the path of the club. So then the angle of approach is the downward movement of the club. Was talking with somebody last night about their golf game, and they said, my golf game changed when I realized that I was supposed to hit down with an iron. They had the concept the whole time that you should pick the ball clean and try to hit up with the iron, right? And so the concept, so that's another thing to keep in mind, like what is the golfer's concept? Do they even know what they should be doing or what they should be trying to do? And I'm sure you all encounter that all the time in skiing. In fact, I've encountered it myself the last couple days. I didn't have a concept of what I should be doing next to get better. And got a lot of help in that regard. Mm-hmm. And then dynamic loft is simply the loft of the club face, so it's going to determine how high or how low the ball comes off that face. So everything in golf, when we try to assess what's going on with the golfer and why the golf ball is going where it is, when we consider any change that we're ever going to make with a golfer, it has to tie back to this. It has to. We should never make a change because their club looks weird at the top. Unless we've determined that that club position being weird at the top, making that change is going to influence what happens down here at impact and those ball flight laws, right? Yeah.
And let me just give an example. The top left player here is a guy named Jim Furyk. Raise your hand if you know who Jim Furyk is. Jim Furyk is one of the top 10 all-time earners on the PGA Tour. Tens of millions of dollars. If we ever, and if you just tried to change his swing because it looked weird, he's off the tour. He won't ever make it, right? So he's even spoken to this, that some people tried to change his look, but what happened and what really mattered was that the way he delivered the club, those ball flight laws all said, yeah, that feels pretty good. That ball's going to go pretty straight. So if we mess with him just because of a look, we're making a huge mistake as an instructor.
And we fight this nonstop with our level 1 learners. Our level 1 coaches, our level 1 students, the first thing they want to do, they can quickly pick out, well, that doesn't look right, but they can't necessarily tie the cause and effect, right? Like that's a big piece, a huge piece. Okay, it doesn't look right, and you're going to make that change, but why? What ball flight law is that going to influence?
We'll talk about Sunday's winner.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about two of those. As I mentioned face and path. Did any of you see the shot on 15 on Sunday? Yeah, okay. Pretty crazy. Blocked out by the tree. It's Sunday of the Masters, the biggest event for Rory. And he's trying to pull off a shot to hit a par 5 and 2 over water to a green that is almost impossible to hold in general when you hit your second shot in, let alone the fact that the tree's in the way and he's decided he's going to start the ball out right and sling it back around, right? So he has learned his skill well enough and refined it well enough to trust himself to pull this off in the most important time. And he does it by manipulating the face angle at impact, to where basically the face angle is pointed where the ball starts, for the most part. If you hit it in the middle of the club face, then the ball's going to start basically where that face was pointed. But then it's going to curve opposite to the path of the club. So Rory's face was pointed right, but his path was even more right to make that ball sling around to the left. So he used his understanding of ball flight laws to influence performance, right? Pretty cool example of of manipulating and having all of the skills, because this is not a shot that he normally hits. He hits a little draw, not a slinging hook like this, right? All right, we'll quickly go through these. Principles and preferences. This is what you often see change. So principles might be like your setup, how you address the ball, your posture, your stance, your alignment, how you grip the club, right? Those would be preferences. So, for me, I wonder what that would be. What would the preferences be in skiing? I'd be interested to learn more about that, right? Those would be principles. The key positions and movements that will directly influence the laws. That's what we're looking at there. Whereas preferences is kind of a choice of swing fundamentals that constitute style. So you saw those elite golfers. You see two elite golfers here. Two women who've been number one in the world. One's currently number one. The other one was number one for just a couple of years ago. They're both at the top of their backswing. They've got some different style going on there, right? One back is leaned towards the target. The other one's kind of leaning away from the target. Different style, some different preferences. So this is where our students get stuck. We need them to get back to the wall.
Great. What we thought we would do when as we're getting set up for our live demonstration, we wanted to bring Jeb and Dave up just for a little Q&A with the whole room as we get set up here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take what we just talked about and hopefully show you that in action. So Dave, if you don't mind coming up, and maybe we can see what questions you all have at this point before we start hitting some golf shots.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah. You need a mic as well? Here, I'll give you this one.
Okay.
Question over there?
Hi, Aaron. Go for it.
I have a question regarding the mental game, specifically speaking. When winning and losing start to get into someone's mind, or like external things start to get into mind, I find myself to sometimes my muscle just does not work the same way. Like why that's the case? Why, like when there are other thoughts get into my mind, I'm sure that I'm not the only person. Like when these thoughts get into my mind and my muscle just stop function as I intend.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to answer the golf one very quickly, but then I'd love to hear the skiing reference. So in golf, what we focus on as golfers, we're so concerned about the score at the end. And the reality of it is we can't control the score at the end. But we can control what we're doing in this moment right now, what we're thinking right now, how we're preparing for the shot, how we're considering our options, the decisions that we're making. We can control the practice we put in before, right? And so being committed to the shot is what we talk to our students about. Like commit to this shot right here, right now, in this moment. Kind of being mindful of where you are right now to control some of those. Because we can't control the outcome of what we score today. I can't control the fact that I made a birdie on the last hole, or that for our national test of performance for our students, it's the only golf tournament in the world where you know what you need to shoot before you tee off. And it doesn't matter on the conditions that day. It could be pouring rain, right? So they know right away if they need to shoot 76, and it's a par 72, but if they make a bogey on the first hole, they start counting. I've only got 3 more bogeys I can make, right? So it's very much a mental game. And so if they're focused on their score, then we have issues. But if they can focus on, I'm hitting this shot right here, what are all my options? How do I commit to this shot and then total my score up at the end and see where I end up? That's what we see in golf. Yep, that's what we see in golf.
Yeah, I think that's similar in skiing. I mean, in an exam situation, right, where the stakes are high, the performances are high, or it's necessary for you to perform. When you're training, if you mess up a run, who cares? You get to go back up and do another one. But in an exam environment, which is similar to, in our world, to what would be going on in a golf tournament, where things matter, you don't get a redo. Rory, if he missed that shot, he didn't get a redo. And so if we have, like just in terms of advice, if we have all of these things bouncing around in our brain, I've got to do this to the ski, I've got to do that to the ski, I've got to look like this, I've got to stand like that. That's just too much clutter on top of the pressure of that exam environment. And so if we can start to reduce all of that clutter into cue words that are very short, they have meaning to you and you only, that you can start to use to guide your performance. Then you're thinking about one or two things as opposed to everything under the sun, which is, I mean, is Murmur in the room? Murmur helped me get to this point thinking like that, because I had everything in my head clouding around, and I needed to reduce and get down to focus on what matters most.
Yeah, and we're focusing, your cues are more of an external cue as opposed to something that's internal to kind of get out of your head a little bit to be able to get into performance mode. So something that's simple. Athletes talk about that before they drop. What's one thing that's going to recall a performance that I can repeat over and over and over again, as opposed to thinking about what I'm doing in the middle of the turn. Anybody experience that today as they're about to drop into something a little bit, a little freaky or a little scary, or you're unsure of the conditions? I know I did. Anything else before? Are we ready to go, Eric?
I think we're ready.
Okay. All right.
We need a guinea pig. So this is not going to be a live lesson, right? You don't want us to take the time for that. But we would like to demonstrate some of how we would do this, right? So today, I'll give you, well, we'll see. We need you to fit in a particular category. I know you want to. Hang on. Let's see if you fit in this category. First, are you right-handed? Right hand, okay.
Not that we have anything against lefties. I'm a
Yeah,
lefty,
yeah.
okay? It's just we set up the equipment that way.
Yeah, and we figured our odds were better to get a volunteer if we set it up for that number. All right, you know what, come on, we'll just do it. Let's go.
I love it.
Yeah. My name's Eric. Where are you? Aiden? Awesome. Where are you from? Michigan. What part? Oh, yeah. Brian and I will be going to Michigan, in about a month.
About a month.
Ferris State University has a management program, and they have a mid-year meeting that all the PGA programs get together, so we'll be up there. So we're thinking about a little camper van trip and doing some golf along the way. So do you have any suggestions on golf courses around there? Crystal Downs.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. Okay. Tell me a little bit about your golf game.
I hook it real hard. Sling it
Okay.
40
Okay. All right. You actually fit the profile. Perfect. This is great. Okay. Okay. So and tell me, how long have you been playing for? 4 years. Okay. What got you into the game?
I didn't feel like playing baseball.
Cool.
So he's a baseball player.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah. Played baseball in the past. What other sports did you play in the past?
Cross country, skiing, basketball.
Okay. Cool. How old are you?
19.
19. Awesome. Okay. How often do you get to play when it's in season? 4 or 5 times a week. Ooh, nice. You caddy. Okay. Where do you caddy?
Crystal Downs,
Yeah.
Kingsley Club, Arcadia Bluffs.
Only the best places, apparently. Yeah, that's cool.
Can we just
Awesome.
come visit you this summer
I was
for our
gonna
road
say.
trip?
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, the van's coming to your house, by the way. Yeah. Yeah. What's that? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, so what I was doing there was trying to learn a little bit about him, where he's from, what he does. Kind of that first part, relationship building. Let's develop a little bit of a rapport, right? There are not many times. Have you ever hit golf balls in front of 100 or so people? You have? Okay, cool. All right. Most people haven't. So this is a unique environment. So trying to help him be comfortable here so that we get some representative swings, right? I haven't taught golf lessons in front of 100 people very often. So,
Is that good?
so yeah, trying to make sure I'm comfortable too. All right, so no warm up, right? So let's, before we hit any golf shots, let's just have you swing a little bit, get loose, so that we can get some representative shots pretty quickly. So I'm going to try to, normally I would limit the amount of information I'm giving, right? When I'm going to watch him hit some shots, I'm going to do some movement assessments. We're going to see where the golf ball goes. So when he hits the shot, you'll see where the ball starts and then where it curves to. I'm hoping he pulls out his 40-yard draw or hook that he's talking about, right? I would love to see it. And if we see it, then we can start to make some assessments. And maybe we'll consider what's going on. And I'll try to talk through, Brian will help me, like what we're thinking and why we're going the path that we're going down here, okay? I would normally not do that in a golf lesson, right? I might limit the amount of information, kind of take it all in, and then try to synthesize it down to one thing. But this is really more for you than it is for him, sorry. But we are going to try to help you here. Okay, you ready? Feel loose? Okay, so the way we've set this up for tonight's environment, we're going to have you try to start the ball at that tape that's on the net there, okay? For your feedback, a little bit of intrinsic feedback for you, you can then look up at the screen, and just a moment later, you'll see the trace of the golf ball. So this is like we're hitting on a driving range, okay? You good? Glove okay? Perfect. That's all right. So
Yeah, round
pretty
of
good,
applause.
right? Pretty good. He just gave a little bit of intrinsic feedback. He just said that was a chunky shot, meaning he hit the ground. He hit the big ball before the little ball. Yeah. That one sounded a little better. Would you agree?
Here's the draw.
Okay, I got you.
It isn't golf season yet in Michigan.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, so a little chunky. Now, we have not set up an ideal environment. His feet are below the golf ball. Maybe just grip down just a touch since the elevation of where the golf ball is higher than where you're standing. Cool. He's got a good swing. Have you taken lessons before? Yeah? One time. All right, cool. 15-minute lesson, okay. All right. I watch YouTube. You watch YouTube? Yeah, okay. Who do you watch on YouTube? You have a go-to? Okay, yeah, cool. All right.
Sorry about his Sunday. Who's starting to sound good? Love it.
No, don't change anything yet. We're taking it all in. We're assessing what's going on here. Tell me a little bit about, do you know why the ball tends to hook for you? Do you know what's going on? Like with... Okay. So the miss that you don't like is when the ball starts left and keeps going left? Okay. So we haven't seen that one yet, right? Ooh, okay. So you're trying to make sure that you grip it consistently each time? Okay. I got you. Okay. So if the goal of this lesson today, what I heard you say is you'd like to consider getting rid of the 40-yard hook. Okay, we haven't seen the 40-yard hook yet, but I've got a pretty good sense of what's going on with the club head. And as we mentioned, Rory's, right? The club face angle at impact and the path of the club. What do we know? Where is the club face pointed at impact relative to the target, let's say? Is it pointed at the target, pointed left of the target, or pointed right of the target? Where does the ball start? Right. He's hitting the middle of the club face for the most part. A little heavy, but it's not really off the toe or the heel. I can hear that. And so if the ball is starting right, his club face is open on these shots. The miss that he hates, though, is the one that starts left that we haven't seen yet. But why is the ball then continuing to curve, even if your club face is open? Do you know why? Yeah. Yeah, so his path goes even more into out, right? Now, we could look at changing one of two things. Probably wouldn't want to try to attack both. We could look at changing the club face, or we could look at changing the path. There's a relationship here, right? I'm going to suggest that maybe we look at changing the face. Because I think part of the reason that you swing right is due to a closed club face through the golf swing. And you hold on to it, and you try to swing right. Yeah? Always closed, yeah? Okay. Well, let's do something real quick. Before we have you hit another shot, I'm going to test something. Let me see this.
And while Eric's doing that, I want to make one point here. And this is a point that I think a lot of you probably think about. Eric's going to hone in on one thing tonight, right? Oftentimes, as snow sports instructors, you're seeing a lot of things that you think you might want to work on with a student. But if you give them 3 or 4 things, it ain't going to go well, right? So the other thing is that we'll find that Eric knows when he makes this change, what's going to happen, and he can communicate to the student what will happen with the change before it ever happens. He's going to look like a genius. You probably have a similar thing in snow sports instruction where you know what that outcome's going to be before you even give that change.
Sound on? Okay. Okay. So I just did a quick test. I wanted to look at his grip and how he's holding the club, and if it matches with some of the tendencies of how he prefers to move, right? So what we were doing here, go ahead and get in golf posture again. I took away the club, and I'm going to take away his rotation, and I want to see how his arms bend, because that's going to help me understand a little bit about maybe how he should hold the club, because he has a preference for how he wants to deliver that club, okay? So when I hold his shoulders and I ask him to bring the hands back to about waist high, go ahead and do what you did. No, you can bend the elbow. Go ahead. Yep. Okay. So what I'm looking at is how this elbow bends and where this right hand is. And where this right hand is on him, you can relax, right, is in a spot where we might see a golfer that has kind of a neutral grip. So he kind of bends the elbow in this way, where the grip is kind of over the top here. Yeah? And so that's going to influence how he holds the club. But currently, his grip is a little bit underneath. We see other golfers that might kind of turn their hand underneath here. So what I'm thinking is that we need to adjust the face at impact. That's the law. The principle is how you're holding the club with that trail hand. Okay? So let's get you back. What do I do with the club? All right. Go ahead and grip it like you normally do. Okay. Hold it right there for me. So what I see with that right hand is I see some of the grip from this face-on view, which means his right hand is underneath. Okay? I just told you the little anatomical test I did. I think his hand should be a little bit more on top with that right hand. Okay? So I'm going to turn this over here. And then pick this up here. Okay. right, so each time before you hit a shot, I want you to make that V, and I want you to make sure that V is pointed at that same spot. Okay. Let's do a couple practice swings, so we've got the grip.
And Eric's just given him augmented feedback to think about the grip. This is something that he can hold on to when Eric's not here. I have to remember that that V in my right hand should point at my right pec.
Feels weird. Cool.
We love this.
Yeah. If it doesn't feel different, then we haven't changed anything, right? Yeah, you probably know that. All right, hang on. What's your check? Yeah, but I want you to hold it up in front of you. Yep. Is it still there? Okay. A little more neutral. Okay. Cool. All right, if we do this right, I know where this next golf ball is going to go. And I'll tell the audience without telling him. Hang on. Give me the check. Hold it up. We in a good spot? Okay. Go ahead. Oh, shit. We all heard it. We all heard it. Okay? Thanks for doing that. I didn't even pay you, but I'll pay you later. A little fist bump. Give me a fist bump. Oh. All right. So why did it go that way, right? We adjusted the grip. He, for so long, has had this grip that's kept a closed club face. And the way he's adapted to that closed club face is by swinging way out to the right. When he times it, it's okay. The ball drills back nicely. But when he doesn't time it, he shuts that face, and, man, he's got big misses. So we're going to try to eliminate some of those big misses. So we've weakened his grip a little bit, that bottom hand, to work a little bit more like the way his hands do. Now, this is one demonstration, right? We're not going to solve the world's problems in his game right now, but I know that when we change the face, you're going to get tired of that right shot because you're about to hit it again and then probably again. But then the next thing we're going to work on, once I know he's learned this skill of how to correctly grip the club, we're now going to work on the club path to match that grip and that face.
I'll hit it straight right now.
You'll hit it straight right now?
Sure.
So, show us. All right. I'm okay with that. Now, hang on. Give me the check. What was the check? Got it? Okay.
Part hole. Chips.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Still right.
Yep.
But I need him to be comfortable with missing it right for a little while. So if this were an actual lesson, I would have a conversation with him about, okay, here's our plan of attack. This is why we're doing it this way. This is what you're going to work on over the next period of time, all right? Here's how you're going to work on it. We already gave him the check. Cool thing about this, you can work on this any time of the day in any location. You can keep re-gripping the club while you're watching TV at night, okay? Then, once he's got this, because he's a pretty good golfer, he's going to get, as long as you commit to this grip, he's going to get really tired of seeing it go right. And now he's going to change his release pattern, and he's going to adjust that path from being so far in to out, right? He's going to explore a little bit. He's going to get to play. He's going to experiment with this. I'm going to encourage that, right? And he's going to figure out a way. And if he doesn't figure out that way between now and the next time that we get together, if he can show me that he's got this part down, then we're going to move to that next piece of adjusting the path.
Yeah, and the other thing that we think about in this situation is, let's say that he starts getting really frustrated with us in the moment, right? And the change that we're trying to make is not taking. We'll have it very, very much distilled down so we can shorten his swing. So for you all, you might not try to make a movement, a change movement on snow and say, you know what, all right, now let's go down this entire run. You're going to say, do 2 or 3 turns with this thought, right? So what I would do in this situation, until his grip change is comfortable, I'd have him hit a few very short shots, little chips, until that feels much more comfortable. Then we make the swing a little bit longer and a little bit longer until that grip change has taken. gotta think that there's a similarity with snow sports. The other thing that Eric failed to mention is raise your hand if you like making money. Eric said that this change, because he's a good athlete, he'll find a way to change the path. I'm going to disagree with my buddy. I'm going to sign this guy up for 3 lessons with me, right? The first one, we're going to work on this grip change. Second one, we're going to check on that grip change. And on the third one, we're going to start attacking his path. We're going to have him keep coming back and coming back. And guess what? That $100 lesson became $300 pretty quick, right? So I know that golf, in a way, can be a little bit different from snow sports in that I have an assumption that we will see our clients a little bit more consistently than you see yours. I might be totally off there. But I think that that's an interesting thing to think about, is to leave your students with something and then have them feel like, man, I really want to go back and take another lesson from that person because I know that they'll continue to build on this.
Say it again. Who said it? The hook's gone, right? Yeah. So we got rid of the hook. That's what he wanted. Yeah. I gave him a little bit. I went ahead and went the next step further. We started to talk about what it might look like to adjust his path, right? But what we talked about up top was like, what is the golfer interested in doing? Does that match up with what I think he should also be doing? Is another question. Yep. And then how do we attack it? How do we assess his movements? And then how do we map that back to the ball flight laws? Right? I'm not looking at necessarily what looks pretty or not pretty. I made the change based on the principles of performance relative to club hitting ball. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, show us one more. Yeah, show us the check. What's the check? Up. Yep, good.
Okay.
Pretty good, pretty good. Hey, thanks for joining us. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. Yeah, hang around after. We'll trade.
So Eric's 15-minute rate is 150.
Yeah, thanks.
And his Venmo. Cooper, I think we're good to switch back if that's good for you. Any other thoughts, Eric?
No.
So we've
Really
got
appreciate it, though.
That was awesome. You got something to work on for the next 5 months in Michigan. And we'll see you this summer, right? You're going to get us onto those golf courses. Thank you. So we've got a couple more slides here. We wanted to kind of touch on some of the future of what we see in the golf industry, in golf instruction. And we're pretty excited to share this with you.
All right, so a couple things. We'll keep this brief, but in golf, I already mentioned it, we need to get on course. So I'll show you that here at the end. But the first thing that I want to talk about is a little bit of the biomechanics stuff, what we've been doing in that space, and what we've seen in golf. So Carve uses a little IMU device, inertial measurement unit. It's got an accelerometer, a gyroscope, and a magnetometer in it, I'm pretty sure. I haven't looked at their stuff, but we have it in golf, right? We've been using it for 10 years. We'll put a sensor on the upper back, on the back of the pelvis, and then maybe on the arm, and we'll look at the rotations of the pelvis and the torso as it relates to the movement of the arm. We can get that rotational information and relate that to how the club is coming through impact. Yeah, so we've been doing that kind of stuff for a while. We created an online biomechanics of golf class, and so I thought I'd show you a little snippet of content that relates to ground forces, how you push into the ground, right? Really key in golf. It's got to be even more important than skiing, right? All right, so let's show this real quick.
Here, we will take a look at the relationship between the center of mass and the center of pressure. The center of mass is shown by the blue ball in the middle of the golfer, and the center of pressure is located at the base of the yellow combined ground reaction force arrow. When someone stands still, you can see that the center of pressure will be directly beneath the center of mass. As you see here, the golfer was asked to slowly shift his body from side to side. When movements are slow, like this, the center of mass and the center of pressure move together pretty well. They separate a little bit as the golfer starts and finishes each shift, but otherwise, the center of pressure basically stays under the center of mass. In the second example, the golfer was asked to quickly shift how much he was pressing down with each foot, but not let the rest of his body shift from side to side. In this case, you can see that the center of pressure moves rapidly from side to side, but the center of mass stays nearly stationary. In dynamic movements like this example and the golf swing, the center of mass and center of pressure very much can move separately. During the golf swing, a golfer can independently control them both. And using them both correctly not only helps the golfer position his body properly, it also plays an important role in creating good club speed.
So that video, take out golf, replace it with ski, right? You're going to independently want to move, alter your center of mass and your center of pressure depending on what it is, what kind of performance you're trying to create, right? And so that's where I think some of the technologies that are available out there that can help us analyze, study, research performance within a golfer, within a skier, or between golfers, between skiers, really is what's changed in golf over the last few years, and it's only the beginning of it. Like, this is going to continue and be quite large in the future. So technology and biomechanics. And then the last piece, I've already said it, we've got to get on the golf course more. We have to let our students explore more. This was something we do with our player development students. We put them in situations that they might commonly be in when they don't hit the perfect shot off the tee. And then we say that bogey is the new par, right? So they're behind the trees. What are your options here if the green is over here? One option for this golfer, he's a better golfer and he can hit it high. That was an option for him. But another golfer may need to go over here and chip on, right? And so allowing them to explore and play and experiment with these types of things, we've got to do a better job of. So I think you're going to see a lot more golf lessons. This was a very traditional one, right? But very quickly, if we start to see some performance improvements, we've got to get on the golf course, right? Because we can influence his performance here. As he works on it and shows that he's learning it, we've got to get on the golf course. Yeah. Cool.
Excellent. Well, we thank you all so much for having us. I promise you that we will learn so much more from you this week than you could ever learn from us. This is such a treat to be here and to learn from you all. We're going to become better skiers this week because of you all.
Already have.
Yeah. So we thought there might be some need for interpretation. So we're going to bring Dave and Jeb back up just to maybe hear some of your thoughts as we were presenting about some parallels, some departures from the snow sports industry and how you all train PSIA-AASI instructors, and just kind of open it up to some conversation and some other questions. Want to lead off? Yeah. All right.
Cool, thanks Brian, and thanks for sticking around tonight. And I hope you enjoyed that presentation. It was cool. And you know, one of the interesting things you talked about, the ability to, you know, become a learner again. And when we're here at National Academy, we're pretty good at what we do, and we keep doing what we do and hoping that we get better. But the idea of getting out here, did you know your student, by the way?
No, never met.
Did you know your instructor? Where did he go? Has he left already? Did you know your instructor? But I'm just curious, like, what are some of the things that you noticed go on in that little 15-minute lesson that you can recognize from our world of ski teaching? What was it? There was process? There was like a sequence of things to do? Yes? Over here.
Yeah, here you go.
What would be most impactful for change in what he was doing?
Is that a question or a statement?
A statement.
Statement, yeah. So he zeroed right in on the essence of what's going to make a difference. And did we see a difference? Hey, that was pretty bold, by the way. 'Cause
Look, I didn't know how this was going to come off.
Right.
This could have been,
Right.
like, we've all had a terrible lesson. That
Who
could have been
knows?
tonight, but yeah.
Right. Pretty bold, by the way, but he drilled right down to the essence and was able to make change within 15 minutes. That's pretty cool.
But what did Eric do very naturally before they ever even thought about holding a club or hitting a ball? What did he do first? Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
Eric, question for you.
Yeah.
Did you follow the prescription that, or the lesson plan that you had written down in your hotel room an hour ago before you got here?
Didn't have a lesson plan. Outside of, yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of one in that anytime there's a new student, we've got to build rapport. I needed to do everything I can for him to be comfortable hitting golf shots in front of 100 people. And I needed to do it in a short amount of time, right? So I needed to find out a little bit more about him. Once I found out he was from Michigan, where he's from, I tried to relate it to something that we had going on. I found out that he's caddied at Crystal Downs. We have an alum that just became the general manager of Crystal Downs. So now we're going to go play golf, right? So getting to know him was definitely a piece of it. That was in my lesson plan. Allowing him to tell me a little bit about what he wanted to work on, like about his game, areas of strengths maybe would have been another conversation we should have had. But he gave me some of the weaknesses that he felt, so that was part of it. And then to do an evaluation, take it in. But I didn't, you don't know where these things are going to go. But yeah, there's kind of a process in place.
Yeah, and I think, there were a couple things. Aiden told us that he's a baseball player. Immediately, we know, as golf instructors who've been doing this for a long time, a lot of former baseball players hit the hook. So already we had a pretty good idea of what he was coming in with. If he said he was an accountant, sitting at a desk all day like this, we also have a pretty good idea of what that movement's going to look like, what the posture's going to look like. You learn so much at the interview stage. So, Jeff, to your point, there wasn't a lesson plan, right? But Eric's so good at this, and it's so natural. He ran through his lesson plan autonomously, right? Like that's what he was doing. And what we preach to our students is, when you're a first-time golf instructor, you're not going to have a lesson plan. Write it down in your hotel room, get it ready, then you have something to fall back on.
Yeah, I think that's very important because, I mean, for the people that we train at home who are going for certification, or maybe if you're going for certification, you have to get out in front and teach somebody how to ski and ride better. The easiest thing you can do is write something down to what Brian just talked about. Write out a lesson plan and hope that that lesson plan is going to align to what is needed out here. How much can you rely on hope in an environment like that? Zero, exactly. And so the idea of the knowledge that Eric had of what's going on, the knowledge that Brian talked about is like, we know some trends that can lead to certain outcomes. That's a known thing. Well, so do we. And when you have your student and you get to look at your student swing the golf club, or you get to look at your student bend the ski through a turn, what comes next are your starting points. And you have starting points. You knew exactly what to look for in the hands. You knew exactly how to engage with the student. And you didn't need to write any of those things down, and nor did you need to come with your lesson plan. And what I really appreciate is what happened, and this is what we need to do as ski teachers out on the hill, especially if you're going to an exam, or if you just want to get better at this so you're more successful with your students at home, is to simply have your starting points. When you see something going on, you know where to go with that. But that's step one. And step two, any ideas on what step two would be? What we saw Eric do in step two? He watched and he asked questions. And that gave him clues as to what he wants to do next. And these are the things that perfectly aligns with our national standards for teaching. And so we need to be able to see that. We need to be able to watch this and simply react to what we see our students do when we provide some advice. That's what leads to really true, authentic teaching, and that's what the certification process is about. And that's what leads to better teaching when you get it home, too.
I can't follow that.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other insights? Yeah, go for it.
So you guys have developed like a very established success story of like if you get the ball close to the pole, a straight shot, predictable in the field, that's success, right?
Yeah, I mean, the primary outcome we're concerned about is being able to control where the golf ball goes. Yep.
For the skiers in the room, I'm curious what you would say is our version of that, very clear and easy success. Man, we want to know that too.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
It seems that because you have such a clear target, the training can be very focused. The ski racing is similar, where faster time is better, more accurate shot is better. We're in recreational skiing always kind of stumped in a way by what is better.
Golf is considered a closed skill sport primarily, where skiing is more of an open skill sport, so dynamic environment. So there's some differences there. But what's really cool is, everything related back to, for these guys, the laws. So I guess the question for this room is, what are our laws?
Yeah.
What do we hold, as true as we can, understanding, though, that we're moving within a dynamic environment. What are your thoughts? Ron?
Skiing is the slowest dance I know. The faster I go, the slower I move. And yet you're talking about accelerating the club head speed, and Aiden was swinging at full speed. The thing I do slow in golf looks nothing like the thing I do fast.
So you bring up a great point. We have a lot of golf instructors that are onto a good idea where they maybe say, okay, I'm not seeing the movement change that I want at full speed, so I'm going to slow this down and see if we can get that player into the position that we're looking for or make the change that we're trying to identify. However, you're not firing the muscles in the same way when you slow down in golf, right? So while what we often see when somebody slows down is they'll make that perfect move that we're looking for at half speed. But then when we try to slowly progress them to ramp it up, it's in that same lesson or that same period of time, we haven't had time to work on it, they very rarely can translate it at full speed. And so, yeah, that comes up in golf a lot because you end up, the timing and the forces that you apply get changed when you slow down the motion in a golf swing.
Yeah, like one of the things I observed that was cool was the entire time that you allowed Aiden to warm up naturally, get loose, find his rhythm, your eyes never left him.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that you had a pretty good idea of that ball flight before he ever hit the ball.
Yeah, well, yeah, it can go both ways. Yeah, you're exactly right. I was continuously trying to look and see and evaluate. When he told me he hit a hook, I had a couple of ideas in mind already, right? And then when I saw the golf swing, and I could tell where the club face was through the swing, particularly at a point when it changes direction, the top of backswing is like a pretty good spot where we can see it with the eyes. We don't need to slow it down necessarily. So when I saw that closed club face and it matched up with his hook swing, it's like, if this, then that in that situation. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He even started to make some adjustments on his own when he saw the feedback, and I had to remind him, swing your swing right now. I just want to see your motion.
Yeah, and what Eric's really good at is exactly what you're talking about. And what we try to teach our younger instructors is just imagine you're 23 years old, just getting into the industry, and you're charging a fee, right? And you haven't given many lessons. You feel obligated because they're paying you money to start talking and giving them feedback right away. That could be the biggest mistake you could make. And that's what I think a lot of young instructors in golf face. And I think having that patience that Eric showed is a great way to, we try to help our students progress to that point, because then you have a really strong thought moving into the lesson.
It almost goes back to Andrew's listen silent. Like, man, that was so good. I took that one for sure, yeah.
We see that a lot with new instructors, don't we? I mean, we see that quick to go to correction. We also see it in certain areas of the country where we only have the opportunity to have a 1-hour lesson. And you just feel obligated to just hurry up.
Yeah.
When you could take half of that time, take full 30 minutes, just to really take it in, observe, and learn the why,
Yep.
the motivation behind why the heck are we out here? What are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
And then the next 30 minutes, or even the last 10 minutes, could be the most valuable chunk of time possible because you took the time to make sure you did the things that Eric did.
I'll never forget, top instructor in our area, watched him teach a few times, and one of the times he had an hour lesson, and he watched and evaluated for the first 50 minutes, 50 minutes. And then when he was ready to cut, he knew exactly what he was going to do. Now, he doesn't do that for every lesson, but in that lesson, that's what it took, and he's extremely experienced. But he was able to still deliver a pathway forward for this golfer, but it took him that long to evaluate in that instance. It happens sometimes. Yeah.
I think that's a cool piece. When you think about this event at the National Academy, compared to what Dave talked about in an hour-long lesson, where you feel the pressure to cram it in, right? You've got to make the delivery of material. Where you can contrast that to this event, and what's the pacing of material that you're getting out on the hill? Because we have the time, and you're starting to see things like we're going to spend a lot of time watching. We're going to get into a lot of different environments so that we can see trends in movement, and then we'll start to address those trends one thing at a time. And I'm hoping you're seeing those things very similar to what you're talking about out on the hill within your groups. And if you haven't, pay attention to that and watch for that throughout the rest of the week. Was there one more statement or question over here?
It was just a statement on the question of how do you measure a recreational skier, and they can go to different terrain that they couldn't go before, or you understand how they felt at the start of the lesson versus how they feel about their skiing at the end of the lesson. So it's very personal and it's their own opinion. So it's not a time race course or a park, but it's personal.
It is personal, and how can you tell if they're making progress, or how can you tell if they're enjoying themselves within the progress they're making? That's an open question. Yeah, they're fired up, they're smiling. You can gauge those reactions, and that's feedback that you use as an instructor to know what to do next. And you know what? One of the most important things that you can do next as an instructor is say, cool, let's go do that again. Let's make sure we reinforce that because that made a difference. We need more of that.
Or you ask them a question that has more than a one-word answer, huh? I learned something from last night.
I actually have a question. So in this case, you have a student who kind of knows what is the pattern he wants to break. So in the case where your student does not know the pattern he or she wants to break, but he or she describes all the phenomena he or she has observed in the past, what are the tricks, some of the tricks you use to bring awareness to the student that, oh, this is the root cause, this is the thing you want to break?
So you're saying in this case, we had a golfer came up and said, I got to get rid of this hook, right? But in other cases, maybe the golfer isn't aware of what it is they need to work on, or maybe they have a concept of, they think they know what they need to work on, but maybe my expertise says something else, and how do I identify that? So we do a lot of different types of assessments. You just saw a movement assessment here, right? Related to ball flight. So I always want to see where the golf ball is going to go. So I can evaluate that. I can evaluate it relative to the movement of the club and the movement of the golfer. But then there's other things that we'll do, like we want on-course data from them. We want to know what parts of their game they're strong at and weak at, and oftentimes that's like completely different. They think they're a great putter. And from, 7 to 21 feet, they're decent. But then you get out of 21 feet, you get to like 30 feet, and now they're three-putting all the time, right? And that's something that they don't do. So we have a series of assessments that we'll take them through. And we try to do that. Our program's pretty unique. We have long-term player development programs. I've got students for 4 years. We don't give tips. We look at a 4-year timeline with the students in our program. But we're also teaching them, how do you help a golfer right now in this instance that needs to go play the next event? So, having multiple assessments that you can refer to, that you can go to, is what we do to try to identify different aspects of their game. And oftentimes we'll see, yeah, you're right, you do suck at that. Let's work on that. And other times we'll see, no, actually, you think that you don't hit it close enough from 100 yards. But let's look at the PGA Tour average distance approach shot and your average distance. You're within 1 foot of a PGA Tour pro from 100 yards. But from 150, you miss the green half of your shots. So where you thought you were no good at 100 yards, you're actually pretty good. You just need an understanding of like what is good. This isn't as good because we see the dispersion from the data. That help? A lot of different assessments, and then having backup data to inform the decisions that we're making.
Who's excited to go play golf? I know I am. One of our courses in Steamboat opened 2 days ago. Who's excited to go skiing? Hey, give it up one more time for these gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Couple things just before we part. I hear grumbling stomachs, which means it's time to eat. Tomorrow morning at 8:45,